What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. If you're a regular here, then you're probably wondering about that painting behind me, and I'm just testing it out for a little bit. I got it like a while ago, and it was kind of collecting dust in my den slash study because I couldn't figure out whether or not it really did belong there, and I do have to kind of put it somewhere and really like figure it out. So I decided to just throw it on up behind me for a little bit while I decide what I want to do with it. It's actually not supposed to be a horizontal painting. It's a vertical painting, but it's about like 7 feet tall. I don't have that many walls. So this is my little compromise on that. When I figure out where I want to put it, it's going to be vertical. It's just so freaking tall that I have to really make sure that it's the right space if I'm going to move everything around to hang it up properly. Let me know what you think about it in the comment section below. Now let's jump into our recap of what is it? The 11th episode of Teen Mom 2. So the episode started off with Barbara and Jenelle's custody case being settled on day 1 of 3, which means that Jenelle and her team literally conceded on like the onset of everything. They knew their case was so weak it would be absolutely pathetic to really go full force on it. The rules of the agreement are that Barbara gets permanent custody while Jenelle gets visitation every other weekend, which Barbara says is great for Jenelle because she actually did have a lot of witnesses on her, including a therapist that was willing to testify that Jace was absolutely like white as a ghost, terrified of Jenelle's fiance, David Eason. One thing that I am not surprised to see got edited out of the episode was that Barbara told Radar Online that MTV had been sweeping the whole CPS drug investigation on Jenelle that was happening during this time, and that Barbara had actually mentioned on camera that that was something she was going to bring up against Jenelle in court, and that she did, that Jenelle was under CPS investigation for her child, Ensley, being born positive for THC, and of course, MTV did edit it out to protect Jenelle. Surprising? No, but disappointing? Yes, absolutely. I have a quick question for you guys. In light of a therapist telling the courts that Jace is absolutely terrified of Jenelle's soulmate David, how does it work out in this custody ruling? Like, is there something in this custody ruling that should say that David could not be around while Jace is at the house? I don't really understand why he's even allowed to go at that home period, knowing that he is terrified of David. Anyway, Jenelle sent a dramatic ass text message to executive producer Larry about how she hopes Barbara is happy. Janelle's no longer Jace's mom. Sidebar, when was she ever, etc. And Larry pretended to sympathize with her. And we can still see that Jenelle thought this whole entire thing was a contest and not for the welfare of Jace. Jenelle also said that she was no longer going to have a relationship with Barbara, which is stupid because a real parent would be more concerned with the fact that a professional literally just told them that their child is terrified of their potential future stepfather. Like, why is she not concerned about that in the slightest bit? Especially considering this whole entire court case was over the fact that she cares about Jace and is doing things in the quote unquote best interest of Jace. So why does his fear of being abused not register on your concern meter? Meanwhile, in Florida, Briana goes to Lewis's apartment and discusses the baby shower drama, and he tells her that he's going to be going out of town to start truck driving school and training as well. Briana is really sad about this. She even cries a little bit, but she does understand that it is for the good of their child overall. And then in West Virginia, Leah claimed that she has never been on a date since her divorce from Jeremy, which is an absolute bold-faced lie because we all know that she was dating and living with a man named TR Dews and his 2 children. Both he and his baby mama had confirmed this all over social media, in addition to her former neighbors as well, when they were exposing her for keeping a dirty ass house. In keeping up with this lie, she downloads the Bumble app and starts swiping through men with the help of her young daughter Gracie. Over in Dover, Jo welcomes producer JC into his home to discuss what went down when he brought up the idea of 50-50 custody to his baby mama Kail. According to Jo, Kail had an absolute meltdown. She was crying. She started claiming that Jo and Javi were trying to quote unquote take her kids away from her. Really? 50-50 custody is taking kids away from you, Kail? In what world? And then Kail's like, you know what? Let's take this to court. And it's kind of like, Kail, you live in a 50-50 state. So you're going to be wasting money on court fees to fight something that is in the best interest of your own child. Next up, Chelsea and the kids make some cute footprint thingy for Daddy Coley. And you can just tell Aubrey is a really caring big sis. It's so cute how she was interacting with what's that kid's name? Watson. Briana takes a nice pool outing and pre-graduation day for Nova, and of course turns it into a really miserable scene for the show. She lets the family know, of course in front of Nova, that Lewis is going to be missing the birth of Stella because he's going on the road to truck driving school. And so at a certain point she's kind of like, what kind of a man can't provide for his own kids? And it's kind of like, girl, you knew he was that way when you met him. He was already a deadbeat to one kid. Do you really think a second kid was gonna change him? What kind of a woman is not smart enough to look out for her kids before getting knocked up by just any and everybody is a bigger question on my mind. And back in North Carolina, Jenelle lets her Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, or whatever it's called, come out because 1 second she's like, I'm not gonna film, I refuse to, my mom's dead to me, she's just Barbara, blah, blah, blah. And then 2 seconds later, she and her friends are really optimistic about the court ruling, and she's like, oh, this could be great because now my mom can't just keep Jace away from me on a whim because now it's written in concrete paper. And then as usual, Jenelle's she's one of those people who loves to talk about how she cried and really like bring it out as if it's supposed to bring something for her. She's like, I can't believe it. My mom saw me crying in the courtroom and wouldn't give me my son. And it's like, do you know how many murderers cry in a courtroom, even faint, and judges don't really go easy on them? What the heck is that supposed to mean? And David, of course, riles her up. He's like, I hate Barbara. What kind of a mom would keep a child away from its parent? And it's just so crazy to see how delusional these two are now, knowing that the big reason that they didn't get custody of Jace, and they probably never will, is because yet another one of Jenelle's children tested positive for drugs at birth. Like, the amount of either cognitive dissonance or lack of mental capacity here is literally astounding, you guys. They are really calling a grandma who should be enjoying her golden years instead of raising the kids of all of her failure kids, some kind of a selfish POS for putting grandkids ahead of herself and the enjoyment of the rest of her life. Do you really think a 60-something-year-old wants to be raising children? Like, really? And especially considering how low her salary was before Teen Mom. She was just working like a minimum wage service job. Do you really think she, like, really, David and Jenelle? And David talking about, I hate Barbara. Come on, absolutely insane. Now, Leah tells a producer that she's got a date with a guy named Josh that she met on Bumble. According to her, the guy doesn't have any kids, which really makes me wonder what he would be doing with a twice divorced, like 25-year-old with 3 kids of her own. I kind of feel bad for these girls because, in my opinion, 90% of the people that engage with them are opportunists. Like, it literally does not make sense for a single, young, unattached person to wanna hitch his wagon to a mother of 3 with 2 divorces under her belt before she was even like, what, 24? Like, no, it doesn't make any sense. Some men are better at hiding it than others, but it really is prevalent among the Teen Mom franchise. Anyway, Kail takes her kids to martial arts and bitches to her friend about getting served by Jo for 50-50 custody and complains that he's an asshole for doing that to a pregnant woman. And it's like, Kail, first of all, why are you even pregnant in the midst of a divorce? And second of all, it's a lot better that he serves you and you deal with this before the birth of your child than when you're dealing with a, brand new baby. Get over yourself. And it's 50-50 custody, not primary, not a PFA like you blindsided him with. Like, come on. Do you guys remember how smug she used to be with Jo? She used to be like, Jo, like, you should be grateful that you get every other weekend. It's what most dads get. I'm like, Jo, you better thank Javi, kiss the ground he walks on, for dragging her trifling ass to Delaware, where you are gonna get 50-50 custody. Another thing that didn't really make that much sense to me in the scene was the fact that Kail was like, I don't even know why he'd file for 50-50. We practically have 50-50 anyway. He always gets Isaac when he wants. It's kind of like, well, if that's the way you're running things, why is it such a problem that he wants it in writing? And also, why is it a problem to you to the point where you want to claim that he wants to take your child away? Clearly, he's not getting 50-50 now if it is threatening you so bad. And then at a certain point, she proves exactly why it's a great idea for Jo to have this kind of custody agreement in writing, because her trifling ass goes, you know what, the reason that Jo wants all of this, I bet it's because of V. V thinks that I'm just gonna like leave and uproot everyone again. And she's like, but I need to because there's no jobs for me over here. And I was like, slow your effing roll. Where the hell do you think you're going? You already dragged like one baby daddy to like this state, okay? So you've got 3 in one state, and you really think you're gonna be able to move? I want whatever the hell it is you're smoking, because it's got to be potent as hell. You know what I mean? And second of all, what do you mean you can't get a job in Delaware with a communications degree? A communications degree, you guys, is literally one of the most useful degrees you can have. You can do almost anything with it. Like, I've got a communications degree, and the amount of jobs that it applies to is absolutely insane. So yes, you absolutely can, Kailyn, get a job in Delaware with your communications degree. And second of all, is it because you think you're going to be a TV host with that like sourpuss attitude of yours? You literally were confused last season or the season before when your instructor told you you should probably smile and look a little bit pleasant when you're on air instead of scowling at everyone. Come on. Now, Nova calls her dad Devon to tell him to come to her graduation, though she cries because she's nervous. And Mama Roxanne invites his family as well, and Devon says that he'll probably come alone, which is pretty sad. I don't understand why his family doesn't seem to want to be all that involved with this absolutely gorgeous child. And I feel like, especially with biracial children, it's really important that both sides of their family are involved so that they don't have like these identity issues as they grow up. It's got to be tough to never really be able to identify with an entire half of your being. In another super quick Chelsea scene, we find out that Aubrey drew a Father's Day thingy, activity, whatever, for Daddy Coley and not Adam while she was over at Adam's house, and that was kind of funny. And then we move on to see that the boys are playing soccer when Kail decides to throw shade at Jo for apparently never showing up to Isaac's soccer games. And she is so transparent. We all know that she is just being petty Betty because he wants 50-50 equal custody of his own damn child. And so Jo shows up to the league, and you can just see petty Betty's jaw absolutely drop because she can't talk that much shit anymore. Back at the house, Kail and her friend and Isaac are decorating her graduation cap, and she decides to kind of try to a little bit turn Isaac off towards his father. I would classify this as a little bit of parental alienation, okay? She goes, so Isaac, were you surprised that your dad showed up to your soccer game? Because I never see him. I'm surprised he never comes, right? Like, he doesn't care about your soccer games, doesn't care about you, right? Doesn't care about you. You don't want that 50-50. Like, she is so effing transparent and petty. Like, I don't know what to say about this girl. She always leaves me speechless with how low she's willing to go. She literally might as well just hit up sperm banks in order to make babies because she does not want the dads to have any parts of their children's lives. And the damage that she's doing to them is absolutely insane. Now, we get to see Leah on her first televised date since Jeremy, and you can just tell she cleared the blonde extension section of Sally's before heading out. Her date didn't even get up to greet her properly, and in my books, I would have probably just like taken the L, gone on the date with you, and not granted you a second date just based off of that alone. The whole date was absolutely awkward, and Leah tried to kind of flirt with him and like give him an opening by being like, oh, your mashed potatoes look a little good there, and he just completely did not even get it. He was like, yeah, they are good. And it was just so, no chemistry whatsoever. But then again, Leah didn't really have that much chemistry with Jeremy, to me, and they kind of forced it to make it work. So I feel like if this guy made a little bit more of an effort, she probably would have married him by the end of the week. To further lose points, this guy doesn't even walk her to her car either. He just gives her this really awkward hug, and she later laughs off the awkwardness of the date with the producer, and then the guy kind of like just pulls up behind her, and she's like, oh shit. And so she heads over to see what he wants, and he's like, hey, do I get a second date? And you can just tell, like I called it earlier, you can just tell he was just thinking about dating her to be on TV so he could eventually come out with his own line of, I don't know, welding gloves, socks, protein shakes, or something down the line. Now, Devon comes to Nova's graduation alone, and Roxanne tries to joke with him, but he literally has none of it. And Nova comes out with the rest of her classmates. She's so beautiful, it hurts, you guys. And she is just crying throughout the entire graduation thing, and it's so cute. The only time she cracks a smile is when she's kind of backstage with everyone, taking photos with the family and stuff. I was just, oh, let me kidnap this baby. So gorgeous. Look at her hair and everything, you guys. And you know what? I was pleasantly surprised to learn that Nova had Briana's last name and not the fuckboys. I was like, yes, good. Too many of these girls freely give the babies the dad's last names, despite them being deadbeats. And I'm happy to see that Briana gave Nova her very own last name instead. Okay, back at the swamp, David and Jenelle talk about how they were expecting to get Jace back full time, again, despite the CPS investigation. And it's like, if you were really planning on getting this child back, you probably would have at least made it to round 2, round 3, the full, you know, actual battle. You wouldn't have stopped at round 1. At a certain point, I was a little bit optimistic about Jenelle, but shame on me, because this is the moment. She goes, you know what? This is great. I get one-on-one time, Jace. We really need our one-on-one time to talk about. And I was like, yes. To talk about his fear of David? Yes. And then she goes, to talk about how much Barbara is ruining his life, like how much he hates being there. And I was like, really, Jenelle? Everything is always Barbara's fault with you. You really don't care about how terrified he is of David? That's scary. And last but not least, Barbara surprises Jace with a balloon that says "You're number 1," along with an Oreo cupcake to celebrate the fact that she has permanent custody of him, and he only goes to Janelle's about twice a month and 2 weeks out of the summer vacations as well. And Jace didn't seem excited about it. I'm not saying that he doesn't want to be with Barbara or anything like that at all. I'm just saying he's probably just exhausted with hearing about these grown-ass conversations. One thing I will say, though, that is it was really cute that Barbara wore her Walmart clothes in order to not stress him out about the possibility of going to court. That whole thing kind of melted my heart, but the episode ends there, and y'all, I'm more interested in hearing what you had to say about everything. So make sure that you leave all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. And as usual, we'll talk about everything. You can also like this video, subscribe for more. Feel free to share it with your friends as well. And of course, follow me across social media, where I absolutely love chatting with you. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.